Welcome to another episode of The Saturday Sanctuary. I am your host, K. Will.
Your boy GP.
What's going on? It's your boy BT.
It's your boy Los.
What up, baby? Welcome to the Saturday Sanctuary Show. We are here, you already know, each and every week. Today is Thursday. We're getting right to it. Talking about the college football playoff, of course, in their top 12. And always making sure we give y'all some good bets, baby. Make sure y'all being responsible betting. If you tapped in with Los this week, you probably sitting on the edge of your chair already. But we're going to get you right. Appalachian going to fall through for you. We're going to get that money at the end of the day. But we are going to jump right into it, talking about the college football playoff. Just earlier today, they were interviewed about why they put certain people over certain people. Of course, first came Ohio State being over Georgia and why that happened. Their explanation, of course, was the fact that Ohio State had a better loss than UGA. So I want to ask you guys, regardless of consistency or not, should they look at the better loss or should they look at the better win?
Honestly, I think it should be a combination. But in this particular case, they looked at we have to choose one. I believe you probably look at the better win, not necessarily the better loss, quote unquote. Like I said, strength of schedule, all of those things need to come into play, and there are very, very strong variables when you should be seeding teams before we get to conference championship weekend. So I personally would go best win out of the two top teams, and then go from there.
I definitely agree with that. I'm more on the best win side. GP, do you feel like, of course, again, consistency, like we talked earlier, you want the consistency to be the biggest thing. Do you feel like they can be consistent, whether it be best win or best loss? Do you foresee them being inconsistent at some point when it comes to this top 12?
I feel like being that you have already set a precedent, there's an opportunity for you to be consistent this time. Also, there's 12 teams. I think in previous years, with the 4-team playoff, it's always been very inconsistent about, do we pick who's the best team? Do we pick who has won their conference championship? It's been a little more inconsistent. I think now with 12 teams, it gives them a little more leeway to, I would assume, pick the best teams, I guess. I don't even know what their particular criteria is. I kind of wish they would actually define it and just stick with it. But this is the first time we're doing this, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's real. Los, how do you feel about it?
Me personally, I would say, I mean, depending on who you beat, that's cool and everything. But I mean, if you're losing to teams that you really shouldn't be losing to, compared to a team that it's more of a debatable game, I think you got to look at that losses. Look at who you lose to over who you beat. Yeah, you might beat a top 10 ranked team that's like number 7, number 8, but I mean, if you lose to number 3, that shouldn't factor your overall outcome as compared to you beating a team lower than you.
Yes.
Losing to a team way worse than you is much worse than losing to a team better than you. So
I also think recency bias helps too. Like when you losing earlier in the season is probably way more beneficial than losing later in the season, when the rankings are more clarified, I would say. Even if you do lose to a quote-unquote bad team, per se. Like Tennessee losing, for example, to Arkansas, that was earlier in the year. But if they had come down further and been ranked high and then go to Georgia and then lose, I feel like that's a little bit different. People are gonna look at that a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's true. I feel both sides of that. I think when it comes to that best loss stuff, though, you talking about certain teams going against number 1, number 2, top 5 teams. We'll just say top 5 teams. You're gonna bring your best A game, or you probably are gonna get smacked. So I think anytime you go up against a top 5 team and you're competitive, that's your best loss. So we're rewarding people just because they're going up against the top 5 team on their schedule and you were competitive now versus, the fact that we went in Texas and we're dominant. So it's like, what was Ohio State's best win? Penn State. Penn State is currently ranked lower than Texas. Penn State, they didn't really dominate necessarily Penn State. The door was left open multiple times. The game was not at night. It was at noon. I just don't understand how we overlook how good of a win that is. And I'm definitely on the side of, more so because I love us being the underdog as a fan of Georgia. I'm cool with us being behind Ohio State. But I do just want to, I kind of want to question the reasoning because it just doesn't really add up. I feel like the best win is so, I won't say lopsided, but the best win is obviously in Georgia's favor to that point. But I will read something I did agree with from the chairman, Ward Manuel. He said, so for us, it was the consistency. Georgia, very good team, great win against Texas, a win over Clemson. Consistency in terms of their offense. They've had some inconsistencies there, but they have great defense and they're allowing only 17 points per game. I do agree with that now. We've been inconsistent. If it's going to be about consistency, say that first. I feel like he more so was trying to save himself and then brought consistency into the argument. How do y'all feel about that statement,
But
though? Obviously true.
yeah, y'all have definitely been inconsistent, and y'all have struggled earlier on with teams that y'all shouldn't have struggled with, like Kentucky. Um, but I also just feel like I don't know that loss to Texas that adds up, and y'all
Lost
definitely
to
were, huh?
lost
That loss to Alabama was a big loss. The win against Texas, I don't think it was as big as it was for as the loss to Alabama. Like y'all said when we were talking about the game beforehand, they were higher ranked than y'all, but the talk from UGA fans was, okay, they're not that good. Who have they played? They haven't played nobody. They ain't played no competition. They ain't, so it's like, okay, boom, this is Texas game against some actual competition for the first time. Maybe they weren't as good as they thought, but you can't necessarily say that about Ohio State playing Oregon because Oregon is the undefeated team in the
Yeah,
country.
they number one. I get that. I think that's the saving grace there in that argument, but we'll see. Moving on to a different part of the top 12, though, I do want to, I guess, let's try to make sense of the fact of we'll take what Chairman Ward said there, and we look at Indiana being undefeated. Granted, they haven't played anybody, but Tennessee has an extremely bad loss to Arkansas, and they're ranked one above Indiana. So how do you explain that based off of, we try to hold them accountable to be consistent in all terms? Does this fall into their consistency?
I think it depends on what they're defining as consistency. Because, like, all right, so personally, I'm a big fan of the eye test,
Mm-hmm.
which I think does come into account with some of these voters as well. Obviously, they're going to take your schedule and your win-loss record into account as well. But I think they're going to determine, like, how you're winning or how you're losing. If you're losing a
Yeah.
close game, they may not hold that against you as much compared to, like, if you're struggling to get wins. Now, granted, in Indiana's case, if I recall correctly, they are kind of putting belt to ass lately.
They are consistently beating who they should beat. They're
Yeah,
consistently covering the spread. We'll
yeah,
say that.
yeah. Like the offense is fine. I think with those two particular teams, that's probably coming down to like strength of schedule right now. Like
Yeah.
Indiana, they may feel like Indiana hasn't played anybody, even though they're undefeated. They may feel like Tennessee has played more teams. At the time, they had beat a ranked Oklahoma. They have beaten, excuse me, they've beaten Alabama.
Yeah.
Higher ranked Alabama.
You said what?
I said a higher ranked Alabama at the time too.
Yeah, exactly. So like, it's probably that and those ranked, higher ranked wins, as BT just mentioned, compared to Indiana having not really beaten teams that are like over them yet.
That's true. But of course, I just found that interesting considering it. It does seem like they are setting themselves up for some consistency there. I mean, they have the questionable strength of schedule undefeated teams right next to each other with Indiana and BYU. So I mean, they kind of are setting themselves up for some consistency. I mean, you got Notre Dame there; they're definitely questionable, and then you got Alabama, also questionable. But I mean, I honestly don't know what the reason is for Alabama. If you feel like you could be a fly on the wall as to when they decide to put Alabama in, I'm sure they're pretty honest and straightforward with each other and have some conversations that they wouldn't tell us about. Why do y'all feel like is there true reason for putting Alabama in the top 12 at all?
I'd say for one, the brand. Alabama is a huge brand. Like I said, even if they're not the exact same Alabama as Nick Saban from '07 to last year,
Yeah,
they're still Bama, and so that holds some type of weight, even if Saban isn't at the helm. Secondarily, as Grant mentioned, the eye test. Eye test is important. Now, like I said, this year has probably been the most year that, the most frequent year that we've had this much parity as far
Mhm.
as mid-season and just teams kind of being roller coaster up and down, ebb and flow. So I think they're giving that into consideration as well, and just looking at the eye test verbatim. Just when Alabama's slated to be up against the juggernaut, their caliber, they normally come to play. So I think both of those reasons, in my opinion.
That's real. Well, that leads me to my next question, though. I mean, of course, Alabama got that 11th spot. They basically got the last at-large spot because, of course, that last 12th spot, it doesn't really count for anybody. You're really fighting for technically 8, but really only 7 spots because one of those 8 spots is automatically going to Group of 5. So they got that 7th spot. Let's talk about those on the bubble teams. Of course, you got an Ole Miss in that 16. You got LSU sitting out there. You also have SMU sitting out there, and then of course you got Texas A&M sitting out there, kind of on the bubble. I mean, you got some other teams that can play themselves in. You got Colorado at 20. If they just win out and get a little help, of course, along the way, there's somebody that can jump from 20 to not necessarily 12. You can't put them at 12, but 20. Technically, if they're gonna get in 20 to 4, they're gonna have to jump from 20 to 4. They're gonna have to win the conference, but they do have a path for that. Out of those bubble teams, we'll call them, who do y'all feel like will make that push into the top 12? If you have to pick one, of course.
Probably personally have the most faith right now. I don't even know if you mentioned them, but probably Texas A&M or SMU.
I mentioned both.
All right. So I'll say both, but my
Yep.
reasoning for SMU, I don't really think that they have anybody that is a struggle on the rest of their conference outside of when they potentially get into the ACC championship against Miami.
And they play Boston College, Virginia, and California.
No.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Cal has the only potential, but I feel like honestly the way Cal played against Miami, that was just a Miami thing versus Cal.
And so I guess
Texas A&M has to play Auburn and Texas still.
Okay, so my thinking with the SMU thing is their offense is good enough to challenge Miami, whose defensive secondary in particular is a bit of a struggle. I could potentially see an upset in that situation. I am not saying that Miami would lose necessarily because they do have one of the best players in the country in Cam Ward. But there's more upset potential, in my opinion, in that regard, which would cause SMU, I think, to get in. And then you have a one-loss Miami, who I still would put in the playoff just because, like I said, like BT mentioned kind of earlier with Alabama, but whose odds do you really want to see in this 12-team playoff? Like they're going to be, I think they're going to be fair, but they are definitely going to be choosing players and or big brands that they want to see. Like this 12-team playoff is meant for the Miamis. Like if USC was good, the Notre Dames, as I told you at the beginning of the year, that's why a team like Notre Dame, they only got one loss, they are getting in. Yeah, like they're gonna put these teams in because people are gonna watch that type. They're gonna watch these big schools try to play football to try to win a national championship. And then my bad, cut it off. The A&M thing, I just think they got a chance against Texas at home, and the loss to South Carolina was very bad. But I think playing for the SEC championship, that's really their only way to get in right now, honestly. But I do think that they can beat Texas, and depending on who they play in the SEC championship, there's a possibility they can get in there.
Of course, I feel like low key to think that they would just bump Boise State out though, because they don't play anybody for the remainder of their season either.
Nah, Boise State is definitely.
So the top 12. Yeah, the top group of 5 team is Boise State. The next group of 5 team right now currently is Army. Granted, Army is undefeated, but I believe Army still plays Notre Dame. So that's either a W or an L.
Yeah, regardless. I mean,
they still have to play Navy also.
Oh, and they still have to play Navy, who's also very good.
I mean, we can talk about that. We can talk about that real quick. If Army beats Notre Dame, do y'all see them bumping Boise State out of that 12 spot and putting Army in there?
No. But they will move them significantly higher.
They will get moved significantly higher, but I don't see them.
No. I think, unfortunately, I do think Army would have to go undefeated to get in.
Because but because I can't see Boise State getting bumped out if they went out, because the only team at this point they would have lost to would be
the number 1 team in the country. Yeah, and they barely lost that game.
Well, wait, what? I'm a little confused, GP. You said you feel like Army would have to win out I mean, they would have to be undefeated to be in the college football playoff.
Yes.
And Boise lose.
And well,
Oh, you're saying and Boise loses. Because I'm saying, right, if they beat Notre Dame, I mean, assuming they beat Navy, I would think if you can beat Notre Dame, you can beat Navy.
yeah.
But, rivalry games are different.
But
But if they do go undefeated, do you feel like if Boise State's undefeated, Army's undefeated, which means Army beat Notre Dame, would they knock Boise State out of that 12 spot?
But I don't. But if Boise State gets knocked out of that 12 spot, I feel like SMU takes it if they went out because the
They
only
aren't.
team
They aren't up for it. So Carlos, the top 12, there's that 12 spot is automatically going to Group of 5. It's a rule.
Okay.
Automatically going.
You got a top.
So it's
just the
automatically
highest.
Boise State
With
spot
that.
or Army spots. That's why Boise State is there. Because if that rule wasn't there, they're not putting Boise State at 12. They're not.
Yeah, no.
They would definitely. I think right now it probably would be an SMU.
SMU.
Or honestly, no, we're kind of tripping. I think they would rank a lot of things differently there, but I think it probably would be a.
It'd either be SMU or they'd rank one of the SEC teams higher, one of the two
I
lost.
think it would be Texas A&M because I think it'd be Texas A&M because you can't have Notre Dame that. I don't know. I guess I understand SMU. Actually, I'm talking myself out of it. It probably would be SMU. It probably would.
Because I mean, the only team they lost to is number 9.
Oh, SMU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's the only team they lost to.
Yeah. So
that's when you guys start looking into it too. Like again, like I mentioned with the Penn State thing, I guess earlier. Like, granted, their best win stinks, but it's also like, who did you lose to, and when did you lose, and kind of like, how did you lose? Georgia lost to Alabama, who's not that great, but like, it's still Alabama.
It's Alabama to us. I just feel like people kind of pick and choose where they stop taking certain factors into effect. Because it's like if you give Penn State credit for the way that they lost to Ohio State, why are you giving Ohio State so much credit for beating Penn State then? So it's like people kind of pick and choose where they stop taking certain factors in. But like we were talking about with the on the bubble teams, just something interesting to talk about. Of course, Notre Dame is sitting at minus 250. We have BYU sitting at plus 130, and these are all off FanDuel, based off FanDuel's odds. Ole Miss, surprisingly to me, is sitting at plus 160 to make the college football playoff. And Texas A&M is below not only Ole Miss, but also below, their odds are also below LSU, sitting at plus 350, which is interesting to say because I do feel like they can beat Texas, but they kind of, Carlos might be responsible for these FanDuel odds because he believes there's no possible way that Texas A&M beats Texas. So it kind of seems like FanDuel thinks the same thing. Or, I mean, honestly, it kind of points to maybe they think Ole Miss is going to beat Georgia. I mean, because they're giving Ole Miss such a high possibility of making the college football playoff. And the only way they make it is if Texas A&M loses to Texas and Ole Miss goes and beats Georgia. So maybe that's really what it is. So that's just interesting to me. And Army is sitting at plus 900, by the way. So I just found that to be interesting considering Texas A&M to myself, I feel like they have a pretty good chance of making the college football playoff. How do y'all feel about Texas A&M? I feel like a lot of that is, I think, do y'all agree? Do y'all feel like that's based off of FanDuel potentially thinking Ole Miss is going to beat Georgia and Texas A&M is going to lose to Texas?
I just don't see Texas A&M losing. I mean, I don't see Texas losing to Texas A&M. I don't think Texas A&M has it. I mean,
What's missing to you?
They just got their ass beat by South Carolina. Defense is what's missing. Now, don't get me wrong. We've always said South Carolina's defense is very nice for what South Carolina is. Mm-hmm. But that offense is not. Come on, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
where's your defense at? You let South Carolina put up 44.
I mean, also Carlos, Texas A&M Texas game is at Kyle Field.
It's in Kyle Field.
Texas A&M is at home. Like you don't see nothing.
The only thing I could give you on the A&M offense is Le'Veon Moss, I think, has a significant knee injury. So that is a really big component missing in their run game that they had. But kind of like what I mentioned earlier, in like Monday or Tuesday, Lenora Sellers was breaking a lot of sacks, like would-be sacks that I don't think Quinn Ewers would break out of at all. Or Arch Manning, for that matter, even though he's significantly more mobile than Arch and than Quinn.
But the problem is, They have to get to the quarterback. I don't think Texas A&M has that. They don't have.
You
That
wow. They
that's
might. I'm not trying to be funny. They might have a better defensive line than Georgia, who
they
really got
have.
to
They
Texas.
potentially
They
have
got
the
some
best.
dogs.
I'll say they for sure have the best performing defensive line. Ole Miss has the probably highest individual players,
Yeah.
but
I
Texas
don't
A&M
know,
has
bro.
the
I
highest
don't.
Well, I
performing.
mean, I it's weird. If I was to rank like these four, I go South Carolina right now,
Okay.
A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss for me.
Okay.
But Georgia, but Ole Miss is like run defense is like like A1.
Oh, we talking about y'all bum asses. I don't think Texas A&M defense is that good. They let 44 points get put up by South Carolina. They let 23 points get put up by LSU. LSU's supposed to be okay, whatever. But they let Mississippi State put up 24 points. That's absurd.
Yeah, I understand. I think it's all about matchups, like we always talk about in the SEC.
For
BT,
sure.
last words on who do you feel is coming out of those bubble teams right there, if anybody.
Ooh, I could definitely say A&M as well. Like I said in previous episodes. Like I said, I didn't think they were going to beat Georgia. Of course, I thought the Dogs were going to win when we played Florida. But like I said, when it boils down to it, I think A&M could potentially win out and then lose to us and still make it.
That'd
I
be
feel
three
that.
L's though, right? Would that be three L's for them?
So that-
See, that's where it's tricky a little bit because all these teams got three L's, but
Hey, but technically, if you're saying, and we'll move on, but if they are saying we're going off best loss,
I'm gonna
my
be
best
honest.
loss was in the conference championship.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got
that's real.
3 L's. Now you kind of
Uh,
set precedent. You can't when
yeah,
you start going my best loss, you
yeah,
walk it back.
cannot punish people for losing in conference championship now. Because I lost in my conference championship somewhere that only 2 teams made it. Everybody else got to sit at home. Their record did not change. You can't punish me when you're giving other people credit for best loss.
Honestly, the team to trust for real. But I don't see them winning this weekend. Is Ole Miss actually? They probably have the most complete of those bubble teams outside of SMU. Best offensive capability and best defense. But it's
I
just they
think
got two nasty L's.
I
Like
think that's also based off of potential. A lot of they never. I mean,
I'm just,
if they
I'm
play to
just
potential,
saying. I'm
they
just
have
saying. And if they beat us this weekend, now they are controlling their own destiny.
absolutely. I'm just saying. I think I think the disconnect is with the word trust. I think the last thing
Yeah,
I think about
fair
with
enough.
Ole Miss is trust. Trust Ole Miss. No, do not trust Ole Miss if anything.
Hey,
But
fair enough.
of course, we'll see. But we'll go ahead and move on to talk about some special players. Of course, each and every year we all wait, kind of, sort of, for the Heisman. I think this is the first time in a long time we're going to get for sure somebody that is not a quarterback that's going to win the Heisman. Where are you guys sitting right now? Who has your top 2 votes when it comes to the Heisman? Of course, last week we had Travis Hunter go his own campaign like he was running for president to, I guess, get his votes up. I think his platform was simply to show that
Nobody's
he
going
is
to
a top 5, top 10 wide receiver and corner. And when you
Yeah.
put those together, that's a Heisman. But where are y'all sitting, not only with Travis, but in general with your top 2 picks? Clearly, Carlos is with that. He is on board. You're donating to the fund.
Oh no,
Are
Appalachian
you
State
watching
just got like a
Appalachian?
40-yard game.
Relax.
Me personally, I think I don't know, man. I thought they should have been gave it to Ashton like 2 months ago, but apparently that's just not in the books anymore.
Yeah.
Just because the competition, I
mean,
guess he plays. I
yeah.
mean, if you, I don't know.
If we stick with FanDuel odds, of course, he's sitting at plus 500, which I think that's kind of crazy. If I'm being honest,
Is he fourth right now?
he's
Yeah,
fourth.
he's
So
fourth.
Travis
He's
Hunter,
he's
and
below Dylan Gabriel, Travis Hunter at 2, and Cam Ward at 1.
All right.
I'm gonna be honest. It's a quarterback trophy. We all know that, but I honestly, at this point, if this is how they're gonna set it up and this is what it's looking like, I just think Travis Hunter should get it. I personally think Travis Hunter's play is more impressive than Cam Ward. Cam touches the ball every single play. Travis can't do that unless they throw him the ball or unless they throw the ball at him. And when he does get the ball thrown at him, he makes some incredible plays. Like Cam Ward, on the other hand, I'm not gonna say he doesn't do good stuff. I mean, he does his job, but as far as him doing something over the top and extraordinary, to where I just think more so his receivers are just playing exceptionally well, I'm going to lean more towards the receivers doing their job better and just making it easier for Cam. Cam looks nice because Restrepo is getting open when he should be the most guarded man on that field. Like, so, well, I'm going Travis.
I would say the biggest thing with that is, for me, when it comes to Travis Hunter, at least, like we said earlier in the year when we had the conversation about our early Heisman picks, bro, I need you to be healthy. Not because I'm trying to hold that against you. It's just like, can I see more of you? I just feel like we know what Travis Hunter is capable of, and we do see it. But it's like, can I get more of it? Can I have some plays that for the kids that they can remember? Like Reggie Bush, I just feel like every game with Reggie Bush, it
He
was
was
a
doing
highlight.
something.
Highlight. Yeah, he was
So
getting to it.
memorable. And
He was getting to it.
I feel like almost last year was more memorable for Travis than this year, outside of that crazy catch on the sideline where you don't even know how he even saw the ball and it was all off of instinct. Other than that, I really can't think of anything that really stuck out to me this year so far. He's been hurt, but I still kind of want to give it to him just because I want to give it to him because I know what he's capable of. But I want you to still earn it. You feel me? It's just like being that teacher's pet. It's like we know you're our favorite, bro. You play two sides of the field, dog, and you're crazy athletic.
Very
But
good.
can you earn it from us though? Still, even though we want to give it to you.
So, oof, I'm gonna be all over the place with this. I think I wanted Genty to win, but I don't. I think the
You know
group of
that.
five thing is gonna hold it against him. Unfortunately, even though he's doing things we haven't seen, like I said, since Reggie. I mean, not Reggie. Barry Sanders or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think it's gonna go to between Travis Hunter and Cam Ward. The reason it would not go to Travis is if he's not playing on championship Saturday. I think having, because what people always say, like, what's your Heisman moment? And a lot of times for a lot of these Heisman winners, it comes down to like, what did they do in championship Saturday? Especially if they like did something crazy. Cam Ward not having a defense also helps him, in my opinion, because he has to go into superhero mode a lot when either he has to come back or from the team that's like when they're down, or they're letting the team score and he has to continue scoring points to put up like 40 or 50 points every week. Um, but I'd personally, I guess, give it to Travis just because he's probably going to break a stack. Receiving wise, there's a decent amount of picks as well. The two-way thing is just dope. And I feel like it would be cooler, I guess, and more memorable if you give it to a two-way guy as opposed to another quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, B?
Kind of just changed mine up a little bit. I still have Ashton at number one.
Mm-hmm.
I think like his productivity has still just been off the charts. Initially I had Cam too, but like I said, I had 2A, 2B for them, but I'm gonna move Travis to two. Like Kalen made an excellent point. I want to see more of you though. Like I said, they already thought you were kind of slender, so he worked on his frame a little bit in the offseason. He's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. But boom, you got hit trying to lower your shoulder, and then you're out a few. So definitely want to see a little bit more for him. Therefore, he doesn't even have to do these campaign trails himself. I want his game to continue to talk for itself because it does. However, the best ability is availability. Now, I don't want to sound crass because he's playing two positions full time. That is incredibly difficult to do. However, if you want to be, what I'm saying, Charles Woodson, then you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta be out
Yeah.
there. So yeah, and then Cam at three for me. But I know you said top two, but Ashton, Travis.
No, I think it is necessary to see where that third one fits. I think Dylan Gabriel is kind of underrated just from the simple fact of he can really make that Heisman race a lot tighter and a lot more entertaining by what GP talked about.
He's cooked.
Championship Saturday. If he really shows out, I think it's just the fact that all we've really seen them play is Ohio State. And unfortunately, not to his fault, of course. We haven't seen them in any other big games, and we won't see them in any other big games until they go and play potentially Ohio State on Championship Saturday. But I think he makes that case if he stays consistent and just keeps putting up numbers, no matter how it looks. If the numbers are there and Championship Saturday comes, and he's the reason they win, and it looked flashy, he can make that Heisman race a lot closer than it is as of right now. I think one Championship Saturday can do that.
I
Go ahead.
my only pushback to the Dylan Gabriel thing is like someone like Cam Ward has like 10 more touchdowns than him.
Of
Like,
course,
Yeah,
thrown
I
the
was
ball.
like, he's
So
not
like,
even.
so I think
I don't think Dylan's top 5 amongst quarterbacks like
yeah,
right now.
he's
And
currently he's sixth in yards, and then in touchdowns, he's he's not top 5. He's 13th. But and he has the number 1 team in the country with hella great receiving weapon. Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
You don't think so?
It's just that's like that's the who's the quarterback of the number
I'm
1 team factor
no for
thing.
sure. I'm also not saying win. I'm just saying make
Yeah,
it more entertaining where it's not
yeah,
just like, okay, Dylan Gabriel is having this 4th seat because
yeah,
he's on the number 1 team in America.
yeah.
Show us something. Make it more entertaining. Like I want to see something. Right
Also,
now, I don't even
yeah.
know what your highlight. Most of Travis Hunter's highlight reel is going to be from last year in Jackson
Nah,
State. Like,
nah. Travis been doing his thing this year. I just think
bro,
it's
I,
more of like I
it's
will
not
say it doesn't. It looks. I don't want to say pedestrian. It looks regular in
for
terms of
him.
yeah. It looks like there aren't crazy highlight catches. It's just like all right, he's putting up 75. He'll put up 75 yards. He'll put up 100 yards. You'll be like, all right, cool. Like, and then he'll go play lockdown defense. And it's just like, all right, the two-way thing is cool. Now the splash plays, maybe not necessarily. I feel like I do see more splash plays on defense this year from him than offense.
Yeah,
Personally,
more numbers on offense as well.
I
yeah.
feel that. But of course, we'll go ahead and move on from the individual players, and we'll keep on the target of Cam Ward. Of course, they're going up against Georgia Tech this weekend at Georgia Tech right here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's going to be a good one. And honestly, I think we'll see how far they've been removed from what happened last year in that Georgia Tech game.
Oh
Especially, I
Lord.
feel like it's a recipe for, I don't want to say disaster, but if we want to talk about upset alert, at minimum, it's upset alert. Georgia Tech is, at worst, they're definitely competitive. They can be competitive in this game, considering they are a balanced team. I personally want to say, on a consistency basis, they're one of the more balanced teams out of the ACC. I know some might want to say Clemson. I thoroughly disagree. Their offense, I feel, always looks trash when it's time to beat somebody. Louisville, maybe I would say they're on that upper echelon of balanced teams in the ACC, and we saw what they did to Miami. They pushed them to the brinks, and of course, I think Georgia Tech's crowd is going to be more into the game than Louisville's crowd will be. So, how do y'all feel going into that game? I know we're not. If I'm being honest, I don't see another head coaching blunder happening in the game, but this is a much better team that they're going up against in Georgia Tech than last year as well. How do y'all feel about this game coming up?
I believe it's going to be a very, very competitive game. Way closer than what the score might predict. Like I said, tied 14-14. Last 28 games in the series. Tech won last year, as we know. All running back should have done is just take the knee, got stripped, all that. You know what I'm saying? Caused the upset. So as you mentioned, like I said, Brent Key, well, like I said, much more better coach team this year than last. And last year they weren't bad, but like you said, once his alma mater, just as Kirby, as Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, just taking a lot more pride in the program because he went there. That's where he played, and so I think they got that grit. With now, my only issue with potential upset, Haynes King game time decision for the game this weekend. If Haynes is close to 100% or 85 or better, and he's able to still keep that a little bit of wiggle and that mobility with him, I believe that he could be in for a tight game.
I do understand that, GP. I know you were probably Cristobal's biggest critic after what happened last year. What do you foresee happening in this game? Do you even feel like Georgia Tech is capable of pushing Miami to the brink? All head coaching bad decisions to the side, just keeping it what happens on the actual field with the players. Do you feel like they can actually be competitive here?
I do think Mario is better. this year. I think there's more of like a sense of urgency, I guess, if that makes sense. The only thing that does frustrate me for real is like I feel like the defense just lets teams hang around that like they when they shouldn't. Now I don't know if that's like a talent factor or if that's just like we're not that good yet. Or if that's coaching. Like, but they let teams stick around that they probably should not let teams stick around, which I think will bite them in the ass coming in playoff time. But they're here now. The offense is outstanding. I'm like BT said, if Haynes King is unavailable, I do struggle to see Georgia Tech keeping up. But I also know a Brent Key team will fight, and they'll come with it regardless.
That's true. I think him being an alum matters so much, and I think Georgia Tech was not afraid to be a copycat of Georgia, and I think that's what can be a propeller for a lot of programs, or if you're talking professional sports, versus you being held back because you hating instead of copying what obviously works sometimes. I think we would like to see more of that from the Falcons and the Hawks. We do see certain patterns that people take place, and it results in winning. Copy that. I mean, they saw how easily Kirby was able to get the funding, get the support, and start winning and turn things around. And all of that, I feel like, had to do with him being an alum. And Georgia Tech was in a place where, honestly, they didn't even have no pride. They weren't Vanderbilt in the sense of not even a football program, but they were a program. They weren't a football team. They were a program, but they had no pride. I think their fans, I don't know that many Georgia Tech fans. If any, they're closet fans. I see more now. I definitely know some students, and they're more supportive now. But, I think it's interesting. Los, how do you feel about Georgia Tech's chances to beat Miami? Or just push them to the brink? We don't even have to say beat. Just make it a competitive game. Maybe put Miami in a position where they don't cover the spread for the game.
It may be possible that Miami could maybe only win this game by like 10 points or so. I don't think Miami has a chance to lose this game unless they do it on their own. Georgia Tech's really, I mean, at the beginning of the season, we were, we thought, oh, this is a great team, because they beat Florida State. Then they went on to win the next game, but Florida State turned out to be completely dog shit. So I think we gave them a bit more credit than we should have. And I don't necessarily think that Georgia Tech is actually a good team. They did just lose to Virginia Tech last week. So,
yeah, that's true. They were without their starting quarterback in that game, I believe. So, for whatever that means, for whatever that is worth, it has something to do with it at the end of the day. I believe he didn't finish the game. I'm not 100% sure, but he for sure was hurt. I don't know if he finished the game or not. But regardless, 21-6 against Virginia Tech. I don't want to hear your excuses, but regardless of being on the road, it's Virginia Tech at the end of the day. They also are another team that people thought would be better. I know people thought that this Virginia Tech Clemson game this weekend was going to be such a great game because Clemson was supposed to be this and that, and regardless of what people thought about them playing Georgia at the beginning of the year, they thought that they would actually show up the rest of the season and make this Virginia Tech versus Clemson game a great game. How are we feeling about that going into this? What happens simply, I'll ask the question to you, GP, because you love Dabo so much. What happens if Clemson loses this game or just skates by? Doesn't matter if they skate by. Does it simply the fact is that you just need to win?
I mean, they honestly just need to win at this point. But I will say this is another season. If they lose, this will be another season where I would say maybe Clemson is on like the downslide because it's crazy. Just a couple years ago, they were at the top of college football. Just as recently as 2020, they were in the college football playoff, but they haven't been back. You said what?
2020, 2021, not even really 2020, like really 2021.
But they haven't been back since. And there have been a plethora of reasons for that, mostly like bad quarterback play more than anything. But like Cade Klubnik has been solid. Your defense has been solid, but you're on a downward swing that you don't want to be on, especially in an era where it's becoming more evenly spaced out. as a program. Like you had a thing going, it worked. It still does kind of work, and it can work in this era of football. You just might need to tweak it a little bit, but I don't know, man. Like they turn it into back to like regular old Clemson, kind of like how they were before Dabo, I think, where they're just not. They're maybe an ACC contender, but they're not like a championship contender anymore.
Yeah. And they still have some tough games. I mean, this Virginia Tech game, I think with them both being teams that were supposed to be X, Y, and Z coming up this week, I think it's going to be a tough game for both. I think it's going to be a tight game. And Clemson, their season isn't over right here. They still got to play South Carolina. We
Yeah, I
talked
would
about
say that too.
what
Yeah,
South Carolina is. They got to play Pitt. Pitt is kind of out of the conference race. But if SMU loses, they need to keep winning. So, I mean, you never really know what's going to happen. So, I think they still got about 3 tough games left. What about you, B? How are you feeling about, I'll say, how are you feeling about Dabo as a whole? What needs to change? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? How close is he to losing his job? Let's say 10 being the highest.
Yeah, his seat is definitely getting warmer. Like I said, he definitely he helped himself out a lot. You know, he was able to rally the troops a little bit after losing to Georgia. However, like I said, you can't get beat by, I think it was 12 or something like that, 12 or 21 to Louisville. That can't happen.
no.
So he's going to have to do something. And like I said, something's going to have to change because the common denominator is still him, the old ball coach. So you don't want to go in the transfer portal. Cool. We're looking for results. And so the fan base is definitely going to be itching. They're looking for results because, as you said, they haven't been to the playoffs in several years. And like I said, they were the darlings of the playoff in the beginning. And so I'm not too confident in the program right now as it stands. And I'd probably say, I don't know if they have a plan in place, so that's why that's kind of determining factor, with the thermometer.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say a 7, but they probably want it to be a 9. However, I don't even know where would you go next.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's the same way with Florida, and Florida made a smart decision today by keeping Billy. And we'll kind of talk about that, Los, really real quick. Of course, just give your take on Dabo, scale of 1 to 10, how hot is his seat, but also how happy are you that you guys are keeping Billy Napier as well as we move on from Clemson?
Me personally, I'm cool with it. I wasn't necessarily for firing Billy Napier. I don't think Billy is. I mean, his record's not good, but he wasn't given anything much to work with from what he received when the last coach left. Who really was effed up for doing us how he did. After that Kyle Trask era, he left us with nothing. Like he was just like, well, that was my time, so you guys can have this. Left us with a bag of pennies, and Billy may do what he could with that. Like his record reflects that what he was left with. I think from what he has done since then to now is progressive, and I mean, to build from that chicken scratch we were left with. I mean, give him some time.
Do you want to know a nice statistic?
No, not really.
I'm gonna tell you anyway. Through 3 years, and even though the year's not over for Billy Napier, he has 15 wins and 18 losses. Dan Mullen in 4 years had 34 wins and 15 losses.
Dan Mullen had Kyle Pitts, Kyle Trask.
He recruited them though.
So he's had a few recruiting classes to get to accumulate some talent.
I will say, this is
he also took us downhill before he left.
He did. This is more of a coaching.
So it wasn't really like Florida was the eye candy to come to for Billy Napier to just be like, oh well, he's gone now, so come here.
Yeah, it's fair. And I would say in an ideal world, you would have both, but you would just have Dan Mullen run the offense because he can call plays. He can coach. He can't recruit. I can't say can't. He chooses not to recruit.
Yeah, and a big part
Billy's kind of the other way around. But like I said last episode, the guys fight for Billy at least. Like they scrapping, and I respect that out of them for sure. I think they just need a little bit more time, but it just kind of sucks because it's like This is now about to be your 4th year, and you don't have a winning record. Yikes.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of me saying, of course, before DJ Lagway went down with that injury, I felt like you guys definitely were in play to get those 2 last wins that you needed to make it to the playoff. Or not, sorry, not make it to the playoff, but to make it to a bowl game. Yeah,
Bowl game.
Make it to a bowl game. And moving on here to somebody I feel like maybe not, would have been in the conversation for Florida's next head coach if they did get rid of Billy. We'll go ahead and talk about Deion in Colorado. They are going up against Texas Tech this weekend. And like we talked about a little earlier, they're sitting at 20 in the college football playoff. If they win out and they get some help, Kansas State going on and beating Iowa State, things of that nature, they're in a good position to be playing on conference championship Saturday if they win out. How are we seeing that game this weekend? Texas Tech, not ranked, however, they are a good opponent. And they play some good teams, and they've lost to some good teams. How do we see that game panning out? Colorado is on the road in that game, I will tell you. Los, we'll start with
Who was about to be our next head coach?
I would hope if y'all fired Billy Napier, that's somebody y'all would look at, considering
Man, hell no. Keep that.
Deion. Okay.
He said Deion Sanders. Keep that shit in the mountains, man. I don't want that. I don't want that at my school, bro.
I ain't gonna lie, that would be crazy.
That would be
You're
Just from an optics standpoint.
Florida State.
You're okay with Billy Napier, but you're absolutely hell no on Deion Sanders. That
Deion Sanders?
Yeah,
you know what that would do for him?
I can't go that far. I just think the optics of that would be crazy. That's all.
Like I just don't. I'm not gonna say Deion probably couldn't.
Everything looks weird. Everything looks weird until you got to look at it. I mean, he doesn't even claim Florida State for real anymore. He tells you.
I will say.
Who did he get his degree? Talladega. He says now. So it's like he don't even.
He did get his degree from Talladega College.
Like,
he would kill though.
Yeah. So it's like I mean. A lot of things look weird. KD looking weird in the Warriors uniform. It looked weird until we thought it was gonna be weird until it happened, and you had.
I don't know. That shit made sense to me. I ain't gonna lie.
And Deion,
a team full of shooters, you got an opportunity to let that ball go. That made sense to me.
And
Deion going to Florida
would look it would make a lot of sense when y'all have #1 recruiting classes. Makes a lot of sense to everybody.
Yeah, it makes sense when we have #1 recruiting classes, but you base that off of us getting a #1 recruiting class just because Deion goes there. I don't think that happens.
Do you know the recruiting budget of Colorado compared to Florida? And their resources?
Let's just say this. Let's say this. If Deion Sanders came to Florida, would we have the #1 recruiting class?
No. You would not.
Okay.
You would have possibly. There's a chance, an outside chance, you would have a top 5 to top 10 class. The reason I say that he does not like to recruit at Colorado. However, I do think in Florida it is 10 times easier for him to just drive up and down Florida or in South Georgia.
Grant, that's not even true. He does like to recruit, but the recruiting budget is like $1 million. Like he doesn't even have the opportunity to get on the PJ that often. So like the budget would be blown before the high school season is complete. That's why he said, y'all come to me.
But it's also just easier, like I said, for him to just be in Florida and be like, hey guys, come visit Gainesville, or me to just like, you can throw, it's a stone's throw. You can literally drive anywhere in Florida and you'll find talent, like, or in South Georgia, or in the, right there in, granted that's Tallahassee area, but like right below, in the Panhandle at Alabama, like you can find talent in Florida.
Yeah, you going. I mean, I don't know, bro. I don't even understand how you would even.
It's not gonna happen.
I mean, but we're just speaking hypothetically.
Yeah, we ain't got to find solutions for them, Kalen. We ain't got let them keep Billy badass.
Oh, I do have
okay with Billy, but it's very hell no for Deion. It's absolutely outrageous to me. But I mean,
I will say the Billy thing though. This is kind of a completely different topic. Part of the reason I think they kept him as well is like these college teams or coaches buyouts are insane. So it's almost like you gotta, so it's like you kind of got to figure it out a little bit, especially if the team is fighting or if the dude recruits well, and it's just like, all right, maybe you in this situation you gotta maybe have somebody call plays. offensively for you. Clearly Billy can recruit, but maybe he needs somebody, in there calling plays. And I think he took over play calling this year or something at that point. But you got to figure something out as well.
Yeah. I think I've heard, I can't remember who said it, but basically colleges don't have the leeway to act like their money is not actual real money. They usually have such an astronomically amount of money that they can go fire a coach like Jimbo Fisher before NIL was intact. You can go fire him and pay him that money. But now you're not only paying coaches, you're paying players too.
Yep.
So you can't just actually have to
start
counting this money now.
Yeah.
Usually your biggest payment is, the coach. Now it's not. It's also the players, it's the rosters, the NIL. So I think now they don't have that luxury to just say, all right, we don't want to pay $26 million because we don't want to pay anybody $26 million straight up. But we hate you so much that we will pay you 26. Yeah. It ain't even about how much we dislike you no more. It's about, can we even afford that?
Yeah. It's going to be different too, because like, at least in the NFL, like there obviously are players that make more than coaches, but we might get to a scary point where college kids might make as much or come close to college coaches, and it's just like, boy, you better be producing, and the coach better be winning for us to be able to deal with these crazy figures.
Yeah, that's real. But we'll of course move on here to some picks. We'll start off with Colorado, Texas. We kind of went on a tangent there, but very much needed. Colorado at Texas Tech. Big game, like we already said, just from the simple fact of not necessarily the ranks or the numbers, but the simple fact that if Colorado loses, they definitely do not have a shot at the conference championship if they do that. How are you guys picking that game? We will, of course, include the spread, give you a little chance there. If you want to take money line, you can take the money line. If you're going to take the spread, you can take the spread. But we do have Colorado going up against Texas Tech. This Saturday, 4 o'clock, Colorado is favored by -4. Well, by 4. So -4 is the line there. Los, who are you taking there?
I'm not going to lie, man. I think I'm going to lean Colorado. I can't make a pick on the spread at all. I don't trust Colorado as far as I can throw them, bro. I don't. That recruited line is. I'm just gonna take Colorado to win this game. I'm not impressed by them. I mean, I'm impressed by them because they won more games, but I mean, they're too shaky for me.
It's the risk factor.
They're too much of a risk.
They're one of those teams I would not be surprised they literally win games by 1 point.
Yeah.
Like, that's just them. BT, what are you taking on the line?
Money line.
No line, money line.
No line, money line. No line,
that's
no
probably,
weight.
That's probably the phrase with Colorado.
No line, no weight. Money line. Go Buffs. I think it's gonna be a shootout. But I am kind of expecting one of those splash plays that we aforementioned splash plays for Travis Hunter. A few of those actually. I think they're right on time.
Definitely. I hope he's 100%. I definitely want to see that. What are you picking there, GP?
I'm gonna go Colorado. I'm gonna say Colorado covers. The reason I'm saying they're covering is they have common opponents with Texas A&M. Some of these opponents, Texas Tech. Some of these opponents Texas Tech struggled with that Colorado beat outright. Like Baylor, they beat Baylor in OT. Texas Tech got smoked by Baylor at home. They did beat Iowa State by 1, but like I think they're maybe coming off of that high. Texas Tech barely beat Arizona by 6. Colorado smoked them by almost 30. So yeah. And they beat and Colorado beat Cincinnati almost by double digits. Texas Tech beat Cincy by 3. So
that's great.
I have more faith in Colorado.
Sure. So -4 or money line?
Covering the spread.
All right, I like it. I do think that's about the matchups, though. I think, of course, Colorado is more of a passing attack. I will say Texas Tech can run the ball a little bit, so I hope Colorado's D-line is ready. I will say if they do stop the run and you put Texas Tech in a position where they got to air the ball out and they got to get some yards on air. It could get ugly. So I'm gonna take Colorado to cover. I think they're gonna stop the run. I think they're gonna be juiced up, well rested on that D line, and they're gonna stop the run early. And it's gonna put Texas Tech in a position where they got to catch up and they got to throw the ball to catch up. So I think they'll cover. I want to say they'll win by more than 4, like 7, but I don't know. It's Colorado, but I'm gonna go with it and go -4 just because of that though. But we'll go ahead and move on here. We'll go back up to the ACC, or back over to the ACC rather. Clemson at Virginia Tech, like we talked about, big game. Kind of put Clemson on the ropes here. I think they look way worse than Virginia Tech if they lose this game. Even if they are on the road, nobody cares. It's Dabo, it's Clemson. Y'all wanted to be a part of the SEC. Y'all thought y'all were the SEC at one point. So Clemson, their favorite, -6. Who are you guys taking? We'll start with you, GP.
Is Kyron Drones playing this game?
I think he is, based off what I read. I don't know. I think he is.
I'm gonna still take Clemson.
Okay, -6, money line.
Money line. I just feel like I can't trust them to cover. I'm sorry.
That's real.
I really just don't. They be BSing, bruh. Like, I would have expected him to win this last game against Louisville, and he was bullshitting. I can't stamp my name behind that.
I feel it. BT.
Yeah, like I said, I was reading up on the health of Kyron Drones earlier today. However, even with that, Dabo, they were saying, "Hey, Dabo, like you don't control your own destiny, but we control our own effort. We control how we practice and all of that." So Dabo got him. You know what I'm saying? He's in the pulpit this week trying to get the troops ready. So I think I'm gonna take spread. I'm gonna take -6 for the Tigers. I think they're gonna do their thing up there.
That's real. As of today, 2 p.m. Kyron is questionable. So that's what it's looking like. Not only Kyron, but their running back.
Tootin.
Yeah, man.
He's also questionable. So
Tootin,
I guess it might be the opportunity for you to trust Clemson on the spread, but we'll see, GP. Los, who are you taking?
I'm going to go with Clemson covering the spread also. I just think they've been playing better as of recently. They've been beating most of the teams they've played by a significant number, like 2 touchdowns or so. 2 touchdowns plus for like in their past 5 games outside of losing to LSU, which LSU is, a top 25 ranked team. So we got to give them partial credit for LSU. I mean, for Louisville being a good team. But I don't think Virginia Tech has what it takes to keep up in this game. I think early off they struggle a little bit, Clemson, but I think towards the second half and further on they start to pull away. I think they cover the spread. I possibly say they win by 10 plus.
Yeah, I like it. Moving on to the SEC real quick. We got South Carolina traveling to Nashville to play Vanderbilt. I think this is a game that honestly would probably be pretty entertaining. I think a game that definitely highlights both head coaches. Again, you're talking about some head coaching changes that brought some passion and some pride into those programs. Definitely not to say Muschamp lacked any pride or passion when he was at South Carolina, but it is a different sense of passion, a different sense of pride going on in South Carolina, particularly this year when you're talking about the Gamecocks. How are you guys taking that game? It is at Vanderbilt, 4:15. South Carolina right now is favored 4.5. How are you guys taking that? We'll start with you, B.
Man, I was really toiling on this one. Like I said, South Carolina, 15-game win streak on Vandy. However, like you said, you brought in, like I said, the ties. Like I said, Shane didn't go there, but like I said, that's the school his daddy built. So, and then Clark Lee did go to Vanderbilt. Man, you said it was
4.5 South Carolina's way, even on the road.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Commodores, man. I'm gonna take Anchor Down.
Okay, all right.
Very bold.
All right, shout out our good brother Dex.
Yeah, man, shout out to Vanderbilt, man. Shout out to New Row. The Noops at Vandy, but and they have 3 Noops on the team, making moves, doing things, starting safety, and everything. So they're really doing their thing. They're playing well. They're playing hard. Like I said, embodying, the vision of their coach. So now, like I said, I really like what Shane got going on too. However, like I said, I feel like they're playing up and down based to the level of their competition. And if they do that going to Nashville, they can mess around and get beat.
That's true. Los, who are you taking? Are you believing the Lenore Sellers hype? Do you feel like South Carolina has kind of leveled out? Like BT said, they have been playing up and down at times. Do we feel like they keep the momentum going after a big win against Texas A&M?
I think they keep the momentum going. Their only losses in the past 5 games have been to 2 top ranked teams, Ole Miss and Alabama. And I mean, Ole Miss they lost by 24 points, but Alabama they lost 27-25. Um, yeah, Vanderbilt pulled out that game. I think that was more so due to Alabama's stupidity and lack of lack of awareness in play. But 35-9 win over Oklahoma, who's not that impressive, but a 44-20 win over Texas A&M is pretty impressive to me. I think they hold off, and I think they beat Vanderbilt.
All right. All right, GP, end us off here with the South Carolina at Vanderbilt game. South Carolina 4.5. You taking Shane?
I'm a big believer in Diego Pavia, but yeah, I'm gonna take South Carolina in this one. I just think I like the way that they've been playing. I think they're gonna turn the dogs loose on that defensive line and maybe corral Diego a little bit. But I expect it to be a closer game than expected, probably.
Okay.
So let me get South Carolina money line.
Hey, I like that. I kind of feel the same. I think that I'm gonna take
You're struggling with this, I can tell.
I'm gonna take Vanderbilt at plus 4.5. I think it's gonna be a tight game. I don't know if they win, but I think that game's gonna be tight. Maybe a field goal. I will say at Vanderbilt, dang, I want to have a little more pride in my picks and be more competitive. But I kind of want to be chancy. I'm gonna just be an optimist and go Vanderbilt plus 4.5 here. I'm gonna choose them to just not lose by more than 4.5. I think if they were to win, though, I think it comes down to offensive game plan, which I feel like they have a chance with. I think they can come with a good scheme that puts Shane Beamer on the ropes. And I think they got that student body. I think they got the pride of the fans. I think it could get rocking in there a little bit. But at the same time, it could not shake Shane and the Gamecocks. But we'll see. I'm going to take Vanderbilt plus 4.5. I think they can keep it tight. But we'll see. Moving on here, we'll go ahead and end it off with 2 games with 2 teams at the top of their conference. First, we'll do BYU at Utah and then Miami at Georgia Tech. BYU at Utah, who are we taking with that one? Of course, not necessarily a high-profile game. It's just a simple fact that it is a rivalry. And Utah can play spoiler. They play spoiler at times in their past. And it's a great time to ruin something for a rival. I mean, it's almost like a Christian version of Georgia versus Florida. So how do y'all see that going out? We'll start with you, GP.
The Holy War. Very ironic that Utah kind of stinks this year. I'm gonna take BYU. I think they're on the path to winning the Big 12. You can't trip up against a rival if you want people to take you seriously and not hold it against you when it comes to ranking you in the college football playoff. Win the game.
Yeah, and they're only favored by -3 BYU. I think people.
That's definitely rivalry.
Yeah, it's rivalry.
It's just rivalry talking.
Sure. Carlos, where are you standing on that one?
I'm going with BYU. I think BYU still is just explosively, offensively better. The majority of the teams they play against, I don't think defensively they will be able to stop BYU. So I'm going to have to lean towards them. Utah also struggles offensively since Cam Rising got hurt.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they keep playing him. And you can literally watch the game footage and you can look and be like, oh, this kid hand is effed. I don't know what he's throwing at, but this looks horrible. Like, I mean, so honestly, yeah, I'm going with BYU for sure.
Yeah, and it must be noted. I think it can either point towards them being dead, or it can point towards them giving it their all. They're on a 4-game losing streak right now, so either they are going to come out trash, or they're going to come out really trying to play it for their all. BT, how do you see it though?
Yeah, like I said, I've watched a little bit of both teams this season. Um, I'm definitely going to go. Like I said, had Cam Rising been there, I would have been going Utah in this particular spot. I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely going to be going BYU, and I'm not sure if you're aware. Zach Wilson's little brother has been starting lately for Utah.
Yeah.
I was just confirming that right now, but yeah, yeah, in a big spot. I'm definitely not going with Lil Wilson, so I'm definitely going with BYU. And like I said, they control their own destiny. All they got to do is just do what they've been doing, win out, play solid ball, and then like I said, they could be in the first ever 12-team playoff. So I think they're going to be focused and ready to go.
Yeah, that's real. I would like to see it. How it turns out. I hope that they're. I mean, I think Utah's defense has been pretty decent lately. Um, for what it's worth, I think when you don't have a good offense to pair with, defenses are gonna eventually give up maybe more points than they usually would. So I want to see if they can just at least challenge BYU on the defensive end. I'll say maybe that first half. I'd like to see what happens. I think once defense is on the field too often, third quarter, mid to late third quarter, stuff like that's gonna start getting out of hand. But and I don't know why they gave us a -3. I feel like that's an easy give me.
That
Unless Vegas knows something we don't know.
I feel like that's just that's just rivalry talking, bro. Like
I mean,
these two
but
teams are crazy. This is actually one of the more underrated
rivalries.
rivalries in the country, probably that people just don't know about. I feel like because it's in
I feel
Utah.
that. I feel that, but we talk. I mean, it's okay. It's only Georgia and Florida fans here. We talk. I feel like we bring each other's team up a lot, but we were favorite 17, dog, and Florida is way
Yeah.
better than Utah. So,
Facts. Fair enough. Fair enough.
even without DJ Lagway, so it's like, I feel like maybe they know something we don't know. The -3 is crazy to me.
-3,
is such a
yeah.
gimme. Like,
Y'all are also way better than BYU.
Yeah, I was gonna say we are better than BYU.
yeah, I mean, I was just
For
started
sure.
from the low end. It's just like -3. I mean, BYU, whatever. I mean, I think that if anything, I just don't get it. I think I'm gonna just watch and see. We'll just see. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up tonight with our last pick: Miami at Georgia Tech. Of course, we talked endlessly in the past about the blunder that happened with Mario Cristobal. Should have just took that knee, but it is what it is now. Hopefully, the ghost of not taking the knee is not present at this Saturday's game. How are you guys taking it, though? We do have Miami going up against Georgia Tech at Atlanta, Georgia. Luckily, the game is at noon because I feel like this is another case where, like Penn State and Ohio State, the game could be changed by what time the game is played. But it's played at noon, and Miami is a favorite at -11 right now. How are you guys taking it, though? Are we taking that? They started out at -15, -13. They started on -13. It dropped to -11. We'll start with you, Los.
I'm gonna take Miami. I think they cover the spread, but I don't know. I mean, depending on what kind of defense shows up and how slow and how much they BS in the first half offensively, they should cover this game with no problem. Georgia Tech can still compete, so I give them that. But that loss to Virginia Tech is still just like
Nasty.
I can't trust you. So
Yeah.
but they definitely win this game for sure, without question.
Yeah, nasty work, nasty work. GP?
I got Miami. I'm gonna say that they cover. I think the offense is just too good, to be quite honest. They put up points regardless of opponent. Truthfully told, it's really more so: do they stop? Can they stop people?
Yeah,
Yeah. I got Miami cover.
I like it. And go ahead and end us off, B. How you gonna end it? Let's see if you can. I mean, we want somebody to go undefeated with their picks. We'll see. All of us are kind of close, but what are
I'm gonna
you?
go. I'm gonna give me them points, man, for them jackets, for them yellow jackets, man.
Ooh.
I think it might be a little bit closer. Like I said, Pod, don't kill me. Like I said, we'll see. Haynes is questionable, so hopefully, game time decision. So hopefully, he plays. But if he plays and he's a little bit healthy, I think it could be a lot closer than we all might think. So I'm gonna say points on Georgia Tech, but Miami wins.
All right. I like to see it. I like to see it. Um, last couple games they played on the road. Of course, you got Cal played that one on the road. We know how that ended up. Only won by 1 point. Louisville, you won that one by 7 points on the road. And then, of course, now we got Georgia Tech. We'll see. I mean, do they keep that rolling?
Stop playing with
Right.
fire.
Or is it? You said what?
Just stop playing with fire, I beg.
Stop playing with fire. But
Shout out to my man Keith. I know he be on pins and needles when he watch my
yeah. Shout out to my man Keith for sure. I think I'm also again. I have no shame. I'm gonna play crazy with my picks. I wish this game was at night. If I had my money on it, I would not make this pick. But it's no money here. It's just a little good fun with friends and with the pod crew. So I'm gonna take Georgia Tech with the points too. I think if Georgia Tech can start running that ball, start playing possession, yeah, they could win. But I don't even want to go that far. It's just as simple as keeping the game close. You don't have the opportunity to really break away if I always got the ball. And
Well, you gave that speech like you was about to take Georgia Tech money line.
Nah. I'm taking Georgia Tech with. They're just not going to lose by more than 11. Even if they lose by 10, I mean, 10 is a comfortable win by Miami standards. So,
yeah, this year, shoot.
On the road and on the road,
shit,
that's a comfortable win for Miami. Tripping. So I'll definitely take Georgia Tech losing by no more than 11. I'll take that easily. So we'll see, of course. And that is going to be it for us. Of course, we're going to be watching these games. You'll get the recaps from us coming up right after the games this weekend. And always a pleasure. We appreciate everybody tuning in with us. Make sure you like, make comment, make sure you subscribe. It's a Saturday Sanctuary, baby, and we always going to make sure you're knowledgeable, bet responsibly, lock in with Los, listen to us. We got you for sure. Shout out Bob, shout out Ricky. You couldn't be with us tonight, but appreciate y'all. And we are out.
Oh.